We're just a couple minutes from starting the live stream here at 5:30. I'm Trace Savage. I'm going to introduce Secretary of Energy for a little while longer, Ken Wagner. He's the director of the OSU Ham Institute for American Energy. He's made this facility available to us today. Quick round of applause for Mr. Wagner.
Well, thanks. We are thrilled you are here and welcome. Isn't this a beautiful building? The gift from Baker Hughes and to OSU and the generosity of Mr. Ham and Continental have made this institute possible, and we're hoping to tackle the very topics that come across the desk of the Corporation Commission every day. How do we provide more energy, and how do we deal with its byproducts and waste in a more responsible way? So we are thrilled you're here. Thank you to Non-Doc. Thank you to the Petroleum Alliance for sponsoring our drinks tonight, and we're hopeful that the debate is lively and we all learned something about the candidates. So enjoy, and we're so glad you're here.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, if I'm not mistaken, we're live. Check 1, 2. Okay, everybody's got their mics on. Great. I'm Trace Savage. Hello and welcome tonight. I'm the editor-in-chief of nondoc.com. We're an independent online journalism publication. I want to welcome you to the Regulation Conversation, a primary debate among Republican candidates seeking their party's nomination for an open seat on the Oklahoma Corporation Commission. I'm here and excited to be with Storm Jones tonight of News 9. He is News 9's new morning anchor, so that means when we're done here, he's going to go right to bed and be awake at like 3 a.m. to bring you the news. We have other partners tonight. We have 11 different media outlets and organizations that are helping us stream this through News 9 cross-posting on Facebook. So check out Non-Doc's Facebook page, check out News 9, News on 6, The Frontier, a bunch of different places to get this out to the public tonight. So also, The Frontier is our new partner this year for our debate series on fact-checking. We should have some results of that later this week. So pick your exaggerations carefully, candidates. We'll see how the fact-check works out. These events, these debates take a little bit of money and time to put on, so I want to thank some sponsors real quick for our 2022 debate series. The State Chamber of Oklahoma, right down the road here from the OSU Ham Institute for American Energy, which is where we're located tonight. Great, beautiful facility. We're also sponsored by the AARP Oklahoma organization, as well as the Oklahoma Public School Resource Center, the advocacy firm of McSpadden, Milner, and Robinson, the Oklahoma Association of Realtors, and Overman Legal Group. Thank you so much for all our sponsors who make this possible. And as Secretary Wagner said, thank you to the Petroleum Alliance for providing some beer and wine for you guys tonight. The bar will be open all debate, so if you're not tuned in and you need this to be more exciting, go back over to the bar. And with that, I think, Storm, you had...
Speaking of the bar being open, 3 reminders: tip the bartender, share this stream on Facebook. As Trace mentioned, it's on News 9, News on 6, Non-Doc, The Frontier, and last but not least, silence your phones.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Let's talk about the format of tonight's debate. After 2-minute opening statements from each candidate, we will have 3 rounds of questions. Then we'll have 2-minute closing statements as well. We drew numbers earlier to see the order of opening and closing statements. Mr. Justin Hornback will go first, followed by Mr. I'm blanking on your first name, Mr. Harold Spradling, I'm so sorry, and Senator Kim David and Representative Todd Thompson. There's my first mistake of the night. You guys can drink every time I make one, okay? Mr. Hornback, with that, the stage is yours for 2 minutes opening statements.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate being invited down here to speak to everyone and get a chance to meet the fellow candidates that I'm running with. My name is Justin Hornback. I'm from Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. I'm a pipeline welder by trade. I've been doing that for almost 2 decades. Certified welding inspector and specialist in safety and health. I've worked as an organizer through our local union here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Pipeliners Local 798. We work on the pipelines. We build the infrastructure that the commission regulates. And I've always loved Oklahoma, crossroads of the nation when it comes to pipelines. We've been a great example to the rest of the nation of being able to be energy independent and rely on our partners in oil and gas to come together and be able to support ourselves, be able to turn on the lights when we need to, be able to heat our homes when we need to. I do want to take my industry experience into the commission. I'd like to bring transparency to the commission. That is one of the mission of the Corporation Commission, is to be transparent, to be open with the people of Oklahoma and do what's right for the people of Oklahoma. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Spradling. Let's go next to you, sir. 2 minutes.
There'll be a lot of things to discuss tonight, so I'm just going to concentrate on my personal life, who I am, because on 2 minutes is short. I have 6 kids, including the adopted one. They're lawyers and pharmacists and people like that, and educators. I have my daughter with me tonight who's been living in India and overseas for 30 years. So I'm a family person. I live in Oklahoma City now, even though we've lived most of the last 30 years, my wife and I, in Cherokee, Oklahoma, which is a long way from here. But what I wanted to do, I ran 4 years ago in a campaign against one of the commissioners. I had such a good time, and I got a lot of votes, 60,000 votes, and spent less than $100. And I did the same thing I've done lately. I walked the streets of the towns I could for 3.5 weeks. So I set up a flyer. I started out at one end of Oklahoma to the other, and it says 60 to 90, you're never too old. I am a licensed professional counselor. I thought I would use that with my experience as a new politician. And I talk to everybody in every town of 112 towns now, from Guyman to Broken Bow to Hollis to Miami. I walked every street and everything and talked to every store owner and everybody about why they should get up, and several people have. I noticed in the over 500 people who have filed, 2 or 3 of those are people who are running for office, maybe at my help, because I certainly encourage them. School board members, county commissioners, etc. That's basically what I'm doing now, and that's my personal life.
Thank you so much, Mr. Spradling. Senator David, next to you, 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Kim David, and I'm running for Corporation Commissioner because I love working for the state of Oklahoma. I have a degree in petroleum geology. I've worked in the industry, both nationally and internationally, when I came out of college. And then I taught school for a few years, and then I started my own company. The last 12 years, I've also worked for the state of Oklahoma in the Senate. The other day, the last day of regular session, one of my members told a little story about me. He said, you know, when I came over from the House to the Senate, one of my friends told me there were 2 people you had to be afraid of in the Senate, and they're both named Kim David. So I was like, well, I'm not big and mean and ugly. You know, why are you afraid of me? And he told me it was because of the fierceness that I approach a fight for my district or for the state of Oklahoma. When I have an issue I really believe in, I am fierce whenever I go up against an opponent on that. I fight hard for the state. So I'd like to be able to continue that fight. I want to be able to fight for every man, woman, and child in the state to ensure that we have a good quality of life, that the state of Oklahoma is open for business, we have a good infrastructure, we have low utilities, and that it's a good place to live. So that's my goal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Representative Thompson, last to you.
All right, thank you. My name's Todd Thompson. I'm a proud Oklahoman. I grew up in Sapulpa. My dad was a highway patrolman for over 30 years. My mom, toughest person I know, the glue to our family, and I have a brother that's a special ed teacher at Sand Springs High School, so he's doing really important work. I live in Ada now. I have 5 kids. My firstborn son, he passed away when he was 4.5. I like to think that he's in heaven kind of manning the football fields and the golf courses so that we can play together someday. But I have 4 kids that are with me, and I always tell people that even if they weren't my kids, I'd still want to be their friends because I think they're pretty cool people. While I was growing up in Sapulpa, I was in athletics, and I had some success in athletics and was blessed to get recruited to go play football at OU. And while I was there, had some success, but the most important thing that happened to me is I got involved with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And that was really something that changed my life. And as I graduated, they asked me to work for them, and I did. I worked for them for 30 years. And after that, I was asked, while I was in FCA, I was asked to run for the State House, and I did. I was appointed utility chair, and it was at that time that I learned about the Corporation Commission, how the Commission touches over 80% of our economic infrastructure and everything. And the reason I'm wanting to run for the commission is because things I learned as an athlete in FCA, how to be a team builder, a consensus maker, how to be a listener first, and how to be a solution finder is really what I want to bring to the commission and think that we can help solve some problems.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Quick round of applause for all the candidates. We'll just applaud after all the rounds of questions. On to our first round of questions titled A Modern Agency. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer each question in this round. Storm?
Yeah, Mr. Spradling will get this question first. Let's make a wild assumption there's someone watching, probably just one person, who's not familiar with what corporation commissioners do. Oklahoma's 3 statewide elected corporation commissioners. Explain the job and tell us the most important role of a corporation commissioner. You have 90 seconds to begin.
Use that microphone for us if you can. There we go. We paid good money for it, so we want to...
Is that it now? The corporation commissioners are regulators. To me, they are hired by the public. Each vote counts toward that person. Would you hire that person to do the job? Not as that the loudest politician, not the most extreme politician, the one who can do the job of regulating the things that are required, which is almost everything you can imagine. Our lights, our railroads, our roads here. I'm probably the only one who has worked for both of our railroads that was trying to think of that. Railroads based in Springfield, Missouri. Then I've been in the oil field. I worked as a roustabout, a roughneck. I've done some development. I've done some exploration. And I think I know about it. I used to spend a lot of time at the Jim Thorpe building in the basement then in those days looking up records because I was developing old fields. And some of those are still producing after 40 years. And some of this is for myself, some for them. And I think I've learned a lot about the field. I've had a business of my own and oil interest, but the energy is not the only thing. All of the other things are very important. The economy, the environment, and all of that is important. I think that's the end of my time. 15 seconds. Okay, all of this. We had such a short time to tell who we are, don't we? Anyway, I think I can handle it because in my campaign for all of these people, I told the people, if you believe you're better than your county commissioner or your representative, you run if you think you're better. And I may run again someday if I think I'm better than my opponents. That's why I'm here.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Hornback, explain the job and the most important role of a corporation commissioner.
Really, the most important role is listening to the people. You're listening to dockets and making sure that there's transparency. You're treating everyone fairly. You're listening to all the information, not just the 10% that you may hear in the news. You're taking in all the information, dissecting it, and making the best decision for Oklahoma. A very simple answer.
You don't have to use all the time if you don't want to. No?
I'm going to leave it there.
All righty. Senator David, 90 seconds, if you want.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. You know, the most important job of the Corporation Commission, you know, we all know they regulate the oil and gas industry, utilities, transportation, pipelines, but it's to represent the people of the state of Oklahoma. That's the most important job that they have. The Corporation Commission touches about 85%, a little over 85% of our economy. So it's not just about low utility rates. It's about a good, solid infrastructure. And the job of the Corporation Commission is to make sure that we have that good, solid infrastructure and that balance of energy coming in and the balance of being able to bring industry leaders together at the table to find the best solutions for Oklahoma.
Representative Thompson.
Well, the commission as a commissioner, I believe you're a judge, and you've got to take the information in. You've got to listen and understand and grab on to everything so that you can make the best decision that benefits every single person. You want to ensure that we have safe and reliable utility service. You want to make sure that the regulations that we have aren't inhibiting the production of oil and gas and that are unleashing that natural resource that we have, that we want to make sure that we protect our natural resources and protect correlative rights. So that doesn't happen because you're an expert. That happens because you're somebody that can bring the experts together and let them help find solutions so that we can really serve our state the best.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Mr. Hornback, next question to you. What most qualifies you for this job, this specific job, and what aspect of this job will pose the steepest learning curve?
Well, I come from the oil and gas industry, so there are some learning curve when it comes to telecommunications, transportation. But what most qualifies me, I believe was the first part of that, is the industry experience. Most of the regulation is over oil and gas, is over pipeline, is over utilities, which I do have knowledge of and industry experience. The other part, like I said, listening to the people, being available. When people call, they want to talk to somebody. If not you, they want to know who to talk to. Many people are frustrated when they call because they don't know who to talk to, where to turn, how to get what they need done. And being open and available to the public, that's goal number one. I am running without a campaign. I have not taken any money. I've actually signed the cleanupoklahoma.org pledge to ensure that I'm not taking any money. I'm not being beholden to anybody if I am elected. But I am giving everybody my personal information. They can reach out to me on my cell phone. They can text me, email me, reach me on Facebook. I'm a real person. I'm not just a campaign. And that's exactly what people will see if I am elected. They'll be able to reach out to me anytime, 7 days a week. It's not just a 9 to 5. It's not 40 hours a week. I'm used to working 72 hours or more a week. It's about hard work and being there for the people.
Thank you very much. Senator David, same question to you. What most qualifies you for this job? What will pose the steepest learning curve?
Thank you. I believe what really qualifies me for this job is taking my education, which is the petroleum geology, plus the experience of working in the industry for 10 years, my business experience. I know what it's like to be regulated. I know what it's like to be over-regulated. And then my legislative experience. I believe when I bring all three of those to the table that it's a benefit in knowing what the Corporation Commission's job is and ensuring that we have smart regulations for this state. And the biggest learning curve will be really, learning probably the transportation side. We have a lot of issues and questions out there about who should be doing what on our highways and when it comes to transportation. So I'm really looking forward to delving into that to see if we could fix some of those problems that I'm hearing when I'm out talking to the public.
Thank you very much. Representative Thompson, same question to you. Most qualified for the job, and what will be the steepest learning curve?
Yeah, thanks for that question. Typically what my answer has been is one of the best qualities that I have is I know what I don't know. I think that things I learned as an athlete, in the ministry of FCA, I learned that and emphasize those things of team building, being a servant leader, being a listener, somebody that builds consensus and tries to bring people together, a solution finder. And so I think with what I've heard from the commission, that seems to be something that you'll have to be able to do, to work with great commissioners like Commissioner Hyatt and the others that are there. The learning curve, to me, is really the whole job. And the reason I say that is because the commissioners that I've talked to, whether they're present or they're past, staff that I've talked to at the commission, will all tell you, listen, I've been here X number of years and I'm still learning. And so I think the whole thing is a learning curve. But that's why I continue to say that you don't have to be the expert. I don't have to be the expert. But I think my skills are bringing the experts together
Thank you very much. Mr. Spradling, 90 seconds to you, same question.
Okay. The issue today is not so much oil and gas, although it seemed like that's something I want to talk about. It's electrical charges, the inflation, and some other things we can do at that, and I hope we get to it later. By the way, the railroad was Frisco Railroad. Funny, I forget that. Okay, the reason why I know, I've spent a lot of time in the Jim Thorpe building, and during the days of J.C. Watts, Norma Eagleton, Hamp Baker. By the way, one of those three is a cousin, second cousin of my daughter. So I had access to a lot of places, and I did the access work in the basement looking for records. I traveled the state as a landman covering 26 counties. That was the years of the 80s. There was a book out about funny money. All of the Chicago Bank failed, Penn Square Bank failed. I saw a lot of corruption. And I think that's an important thing that a commissioner's got to know. You can find that in the most amazing places. Maybe it's just unethical, but a lot of it is illegal. So I think that's what qualifies me, the experience and knowing what they do in the office.
Thank you very much. If we can just make sure we're swallowing those mics and keeping them close to our mouths, that'll be great. Thank you, Representative.
Not
Thorne.
close enough?
Yeah, perfect.
There we go. This next question is going to start with Senator David, talking specifically about oil and gas. Legislation was passed last month allowing preliminary drilling permits to be issued once applications advance beyond the administrative judge, but before they receive final approval from the Corporation Commission. Some companies tell us they like this, but others say they don't. How willing would you be to consider stopping a preliminarily approved drilling permit as a Corporation Commissioner?
Well, I appreciate that question. That is a topic I would definitely have to, before I reverse the way they're doing that, I would definitely have to learn more about why some people don't want the preliminary basis, because my understanding is that there are measures in place that before they give that preliminary okay for you to go ahead and drill, that they pretty much know your ducks are in a row. So if that's not the case, then it's definitely something that needs to be stopped, because it's really important that when we're drilling that we get it right and that we protect all the other wells around it, especially when it comes to some of the fights that we have between the vertical guys and the long lateral guys. We want to make sure we protect everybody's mineral rights. So if it's not being done the way my initial understanding is of that process, then I think we would definitely need some changes to it, but that is something I would definitely have to learn more about.
Representative Thompson, once the permit passes a preliminary approval, how willing would you be to overturn that?
Well, I think the most important thing is first is to follow whatever the law is, and then two, continue. I think with the commission, you have to continually look at what is the best practice, what are the things that are beneficial to companies, what are the things that are protecting our resources, and what things are not working, and then be willing to move in a different direction if needed be.
Mr. Spradling, same question, 90 seconds.
To look at something that the permit had already been issued, I would discuss with the other commissioners how and why, but if there was something wrong that I knew of, such as contamination of the land with salt water, poor equipment or dangerous equipment, or anything that would be, have you ever woke up in the middle of the night with your house shaking from an earthquake? I have. Living in Cherokee, Oklahoma, we had that around us quite a few times before the commission shut down a lot of wells. At first I was opposed to it because I thought it's arbitrary. When I realized the danger it was doing, yes, I would shut down a well if it's in an earthquake zone.
Mr. Hornback?
That's a great question. I understand the frustration that these companies face when they are given approval and start a project and are shut down. Obviously, you have to take a look at everything. If there are issues, they need to be resolved. If they can't be resolved, a permit does need to be pulled. However, we need to work with these companies. I've seen this in the last decade that I've worked with regulatory commissions trying to get pipelines going. We've seen it on the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. We've had workers out there getting started starting a job they thought they'd be on for a year, year and a half, 2 years. And that project just went away. The Keystone XL pipeline, that went away 2 different times because of the administration on a small border crossing. All the states had approved the permits, and we went to go to work, and that was pulled. It's very frustrating. It's time consuming. It wastes money. But obviously we are required to take a look. If there are issues, we need to resolve them.
Thank you all.
Wonderful, thank you. Representative Thompson, in 2020, the Corporation Commission created a 7-page report speculating about potential impacts of the McGirt v. Oklahoma Supreme Court decision, which functionally affirmed most of eastern Oklahoma as an Indian Country reservation, with different Indian Country reservations, with lawsuits brewing over civil and economic matters. Do you believe the Corporation Commission could lose some regulatory jurisdiction?
Well, the McGirt and that issue has been a federal issue that I think we will have to respond to, and I think that potential is there. As a commissioner, my objective is to treat all of Oklahoma the same and to regulate in that manner unless it's dictated that that's not the case.
Thank you very much. Mr. Spradling, same question to you. Are you concerned that the Corporation Commission could lose any regulatory jurisdiction?
Yes, I am concerned. I know one of the tribes is already established, trying to get send gravel and other things under the ground, even beyond the oil and gas. I know about the Osage Nation holding on to their own from the very beginning. That's a different story. But the McGirt issue is such a major issue, and I think I should say this because I worked with the tribes for 16 and a half years, Cheyenne and Arapaho. I've attended their peyote meetings. I've attended their Sundance as an outside observer. I've attended all their ceremonies. I know how deeply their religion goes into everything they do. And because of that, the McGirt issue is going to be around a long time with a lot of complications. And until we recognize the fact that a lot of it has to do with these I know the arrow keeper, that's like the priest or the pope. I know the arrow keeper of the tribes. These people hold on to things. It's time they've got to get some negotiations together, or the Corporation Commission is going to lose some of that influence that they should keep.
Mr. Hornback, same question to you.
Well, I believe your question said fear. How did you?
Yeah, let me repeat it to you. So with the lawsuits that are brewing over civil and economic matters related to Indian Country reservations in Oklahoma, do you believe the Corporation Commission could lose regulatory jurisdiction in one area or another?
I believe that the power to regulate may shift. However, Oklahoma is a shining example of being able to work with different nations together to achieve the same goal. I don't see any problem with that. Finding out who has jurisdiction and working along with the commission won't be an issue.
Wonderful, thank you. Senator Davis, same question to you.
Thank you. It's a great question. I live in eastern Oklahoma, so this topic is front and center on the minds of everyone that lives around me. There is some concern about who will be in charge of the regulation because of the McGirt decision. I think it's just really important that we remember that we are all Oklahomans. So I'm hoping that we can all come to the table. Once the decision is made, it will be made at the federal level. It won't be made at the state level. Once that decision is made, who has the regulatory authority over the oil and gas industry in eastern Oklahoma, then I think it's important that we all work together. And it's going to be really important to have an open door. And then, like I said, making sure we're all at the table. We are all Oklahomans.
Thank you very much. That's the end of round one. Quick round of applause for our candidates. Now put your rubber shoes on and grab hold of your breaker box. Our second round is titled Electric Boogaboo. Candidates have 2 minutes to answer in this round. Mr. Hornback, Storm has the first question for you.
Yeah, the Corporation Commission has final control over how much money electric and gas utilities can charge customers. By law, there is not a free market for electricity sales in Oklahoma. So when a utility company wants to raise its rates, the Corporation Commission stands in for the public to determine if people would pay for company upgrades and investments. What are the most important factors to consider for a utility rate increase request? 90 seconds. 2 minutes, I'm sorry.
Well, I believe that AARP Oklahoma brings up good points that a lot of our older members in society are having troubles paying utilities. We have rising gas prices, rising food prices at the grocery store. They don't want to see that bill increasing. There's a lot of concern over that. One of the big issues we need to look at is cost of living adjustments made on Social Security that a lot of these retirees depend on to pay the bill. Looking at each rate, understanding the reasoning, making sure that the advancements are what's best for Oklahoma. There's a lot of aspects that would need to be looked at, and it would depend. It would be a case-by-case basis, but that's exactly what the commission is there for, to look at each case by case and decide what is best for the people of Oklahoma.
Senator David, what are the most important factors to consider for a rate increase request?
Oh, thank you for the question. It's a great question. You know, when it comes to low utility rates and infrastructure, it's a fine balance. And I think the most important thing is that we have to look at is do we have an environment out there? Do we have a good, strong, reliable infrastructure that we can deliver utilities to people? You know, part of the quality of life is low utility prices, but it's also making sure that you have utilities going to your home, that you have internet to your home, that you have electricity. During the winter storm of 2021, you know, when you started having rolling brownouts here and some rolling blackouts here, we did a really good job in Oklahoma ensuring that we didn't have any loss of life here. In Texas, you know, thousands of people died because their infrastructure wasn't winterized, they weren't up to speed. You have to take all those things into account. I think through the years past, you know, it's kind of like with roads and bridges. For years, we didn't take care of our infrastructure. And we saw what happened when we had bad roads and bad bridges. It cost more in the long run to bring our roads and bridges infrastructure up to where it needed to be because we didn't take care of it as we went along. So I think it's a good balance to make sure we keep that strong infrastructure and the utility rates as low as possible. It's that balance.
Representative Thompson, same question, 2 minutes.
So the utility rates, obviously, the easy answer is that we want as low as possible. But I want my electricity to go on whenever it's the cold of winter, whenever it's the heat of summer, and I want it to work. And so trying to keep both of those in mind so that the decision to make a rate increase is something that makes the system more reliable, more safe, but at the same time is at the lowest cost possible. And not the cheapest cost possible, because we don't want the cheapest, we want the best cost for the best service. And so I think that's the important thing to focus on.
Mr. Spradling, what are the most important factors to consider for a rate increase request?
Okay, up front, I'm against the back-to-back increases such as they're working on now. I'm against the kind of long-term refinancing that means you've got 20 years, 28 years of interest. 28 years, I don't care what it is, it's going to wind up with more paid for interest than did the initial thing. And also, we know that we're going to have storms again and again and again. We just moved to Oklahoma City, my backyard with huge trees by the lakes and front property. It took weeks, it took months to get all that cleared. It took days to be electricity. I wanted the power back on, but not at the tremendous cost. They went out and I think it was 64 companies they had to hire for either bring transmission to us from the electric companies or the things they had to buy to repair things. I think that they should have those supplies ahead of time, knowing next year, 3 years, 5 years from now, there will be another one. Let's be prepared next time and not have to go through legal things with the legislature and everything to get extra money. That's what I feel. Oh, I got a minute. How about that? Yeah, okay, I'll tell a quick story, and I'll make this hard of myself. Many years ago, when I was just in my 30s and had 5 kids at home, I come home from work. My wife was going at work too. We were late. It was late at night. The lights had been turned on. My kids get home on a cold night, freezing weather, no power, no electricity. There's another city. And my son, my 16-year-old son had rigged the whole system to circuit that. And I thought, do they just turn off electricity like that? I think they're getting better at it, but I don't want that to ever happen to a poor family, a struggling family, or elderly people, that the utilities are cut off without plenty of time and preparation.
Thank you very much. You kind of teased this follow-up question that I have real quick. A bill died in the legislature this year that would have required electric utilities to submit updated foliage containment and disaster contingency plans when they apply for rate increases. Quick show of hands from the four of you. Which of you would commit to requiring those plans of utilities before approving any rate increase? Why? Senator David, Mr. Hornback, one of you. Why?
Take that off first, if you don't mind. I live in rural Oklahoma. One of the worst storms I lived through personally was an ice storm that happened, it's probably been 12 years now. But I live in a very wooded area. We actually get a lot of rain in eastern Oklahoma. We have a lot of trees in eastern Oklahoma. And during that time, those trees broke. We couldn't leave the house without a chainsaw. But because of all that breakage and all the lines being down, we couldn't get power to us for 3 weeks. Then because of the supply chain, because of the emergency that we had with all the ice on the roads, we couldn't even get a generator in for a week. It was desperate times in my area of the state. What we learned from that is that it's really important, no matter how much we hate that the electric company comes and trims our limbs back, it's really important when it comes to winter, because it saves us and it keeps the power on. We still have that generator, and I have to tell you now, because the electric companies that I have in eastern Oklahoma now do a great job. They do a great job of coming in and trimming the trees and doing the job they're supposed to do before winter. We haven't had to use it for a long time, and I hope we never do. But that was one of those lessons that we had to learn with a winter storm. So I think that's why it's really important to have that plan in place.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Mr. Hornback, a minute to you. Why do you support that?
Well, having all the information is always the best policy to have. Being able to have those reports in front of you and have people think about it. As my time in safety, you have to think about every situation. You may not have it experienced, but you need to know how to mitigate before it happens. So you need to look around and understand where people can get hurt in safety or how that will affect you. So having these reports is necessary.
Appreciate it. Representative Thompson, Mr. Spradling, I don't think you raised your hands, if I'm not mistaken. Why are you not in favor of such a requirement on that business?
Well, actually, I raised my hand.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you very much for clarifying.
Yeah, sorry. No, I raised my hand because preparedness is very important, and doing things that mitigate problems before they get there is extremely important. Taking care of potential dangers and potential reasons that could cause the electricity to go out, which is a danger in of itself at the wrong time. I think it's so important that we have that information before we move forward in whatever case. I mean, I think information is always important.
Mr. Spradling, 60 seconds to you. Were you a hand raise or a no?
I was a no.
Go ahead and tell us why. I think your microphone has hit that there button. All right, here we go. An assist from Representative Thompson. Thank you.
Technical part I goof up on. Okay. I think the Corporation Commission could have been better acknowledging what was going to happen, what could happen, and have some regulations that you need to be prepared for this, because like I said before, we're going to continue to have storms, one on top of the other, Let's be prepared. So having just the idea of having the lights on, yes, that was very bad, having those lights off here in Oklahoma City, wherever I've been, and having no electricity, food in the refrigerator rotting and all of that. That was bad. But when you think about, we're still going to be paying interest on these notes they borrowed for a long, long time. And somehow or the other, they're going to keep coming up with $4.5 billion or something like that on a new loan every few years. They've got to get it out of the way. So that's why I'm against it, because we can all go through some hard times together if it means it's better in the future as far as our economy and our personal life.
Thank you. Storm?
All right, next question will start with Senator David. Oklahoma Electric Utilities are within the Southwest Power Pool. That's a multi-state reliability council that helps manage supply and demand in the electricity market. In the wake of the 2021 winter storm that caused prices to surge in the region, how would you work with SPP to balance our region's needs for more resiliency in electric generation and the need to keep prices affordable to the public? 2 minutes.
I think it's a great question. I was, of course, in the legislature whenever we dealt with the fallout of the natural gas prices spiking. From the Southwest Power Pool, it's kind of like day trading. You can have short-term, you can have long-term contracts for the price of your gas, or you can have short-term contracts. The biggest problem that we had with the winter storm was the cheapest power that was possible. Wind and solar weren't available. The wind turbines were frozen. There was no solar because of the weather. So when you have a storm that hits, and it hit all the way from Canada all the way down deep into Texas, what happened is you don't have states that are able to help other states. The whole purpose of the Southwest Power Pool is that if there's a huge storm in Missouri, then they can buy power from Oklahoma, they can buy power from Kansas, or that's how it works. But when you have a huge storm like that really just sucks up all of the power generated from every source, that's what we faced with the storm of 2021. And I think what you have to look at is possibly looking at if the utility companies will do more long-term contracts for the price of their natural gas. But it's also some responsibility of some of the utility companies, not so much Oklahoma, but further south of us, that they keep their equipment winterized so that their gas valves don't freeze and that they're able to get natural gas online. And it's also really important to make sure everybody's at the table. And I think we did a good job in Oklahoma making sure that the lights stayed on. We had rolling brownouts. We had an hour here and an hour there without power, but no one died in Oklahoma. So I felt like we all came to the table and worked hard to ensure that we made the best of a bad situation, but it was definitely a learning lesson.
Representative Thompson, how would you work with SPP?
Well, I think one of the most important things for us as a state is to make sure that we are an all the above energy state, that we unleash our producers so that they're active and we're freeing them up to be in business, that we are not trying to eliminate the fossil fuels because we need all of those energy resources in that time. Just as Senator said, we didn't have wind, we didn't have solar. Thankfully, we had some coal, and to be able to help mitigate and help alleviate some of the real serious potential problems like they saw in Texas.
Mr. Spradling, same question, 2 minutes.
Okay, that's a good question. I'm trying to be a politician part-time, but not really a politician. So I notice all politicians always start out, that's a good question. It gives you time to think about what you're going to answer.
We
That's
appreciate
a good
it,
question.
too.
Here's my answer. I want to recognize a man I enjoy.
Swallow that mic for us. There we go.
Oh, no.
There we go.
I know his family quite well. That's Jim Reese. And Jim, do you remember the time, what was it, 15 years ago when the power failed all the way down through Kansas? Our school, Deer Creek, Lamont, was closed. We were going to school each day and mopping out with the water from the frozen pipes as they thawed. That was a bad problem, and that just shows a lack of preparation. And another thing I'm going to mention then, and in line with that, we need more underground cables. Those long-term cables that strip across state, clear across state, if they were underground, they would still be there. Am I answering your question? Anyway, that's what I believe.
All righty, Mr. Hornback, SPP, how would you work with them?
Well, I am learning new things, so that's a great question.
Thank you.
I would work with them, work with industry leaders to come together and find ways to mitigate this from happening again in the future. I believe two different things. I mean, we look at our neighbors to the north, Missouri and Kansas, they both rely a portion of their infrastructure on nuclear generation. You have new modular nuclear technology coming out, looking into that as a possibility. Diversification is the name of the game. Obviously, the green energy isn't there all the time. We can't rely on the green energy all the time, but it's great to have it when we don't when we can rely on it. It's great to have the natural gas. It's great to have the coal. It'd be great to have more options. The hydrogen that's coming, that's fantastic. I'm happy to hear it. But looking at the report that OG&E submitted, I believe it's the RBN report, I was very surprised to see one of the key issues that they found was the lack of access to the northeastern supply of natural gas in the country. We have a vast infrastructure here in America of pipelines to deliver natural gas, which we have an abundant energy source of here in America to power our lives. And if we can't, in Oklahoma, the hub can't get access to certain markets that would mitigate the cost, the rising cost, it's a shame. We need to work with industry leaders to find out how to connect to these sources. I think that we need to work on infrastructure. We have aging infrastructure, and increasing that reliability is also a key issue.
Already, thank you.
Thank you very much. Representative Thompson, this question goes first to you. We're talking about that February 2021 historic winter storm where several companies made enormous windfalls selling gas to regulated utilities, which then passed those costs to customers. We'll talk about that in just a second in securitization. But first, should the legislature and the Corporation Commission require companies to hedge their fuel purchases in an effort to guard against future price spikes?
Thank you for that question. Is that what I do? All right, Mr. Spradling. Thank you for that question. So, as I've talked to people in the industry, the one thing that I've learned is that things that they could do to mitigate, whether that's hedging, storage, those kind of things, there is a cost associated with that. And so those are things that we have to factor in and consider because a lot of times none of us want to add cost, but what we maybe have to just look at it and say realistically and wisely, we need to add this cost, like to hedge, to increase our storage, those kind of things, and that cost is worth it. So I think balancing those and weighing all those options is really important. Yeah.
Where are you, yes or no? I mean, if you had to take a vote up, down in the legislature right now, you believe that there should be a requirement to hedge?
Well, that's a good question. Trace. No, I mean, that's a good question
if you're
because
leaning, because I'm going to, and everybody get prepared, right?
Yeah.
I want to know, where do you lean, yes or no on hedging those costs?
Well, I think I would lean towards that. I think I'm going to lean to whatever factors that we can use that help mitigate those problems moving forward, that help us plan for future potential problems.
Wonderful. Mr. Spradling, same question to you. Are you in favor of requirements for companies to have to hedge on their fuel purchases?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I'm in favor of that. I think you should hedge on anything that you purchase or buy. I have, if and when, that's political. When I'm elected, I'll have to give up five different companies that I have investments in, oil companies, mostly Oklahoma, 3 pipelines. So I have hedged by buying them cheap. So when the price goes up to $4.20 as it is now, it doesn't hurt me as much because my stock also rises. That's hedging, right? So it should be done not on a personal basis, but on the taxpayer's basis. They should have everything hedged so that they can save all of that. As I say, we'll have storms and episodes like that all the time. So yes, that's my answer.
Perfect. Mr. Hornback, same question to you. Are you in favor?
Well, definitively, I can't answer that. I do lean in favor of hedging. Diversification is the name of the game. You do have to hedge to protect yourself, but there is a certain point where you're spending more money than you are saving, and that's going to hurt Oklahoma. I would liken it to insurance. You buy a new vehicle and you have full coverage on that vehicle. Now my truck, I have full coverage on it. I love it. And my 97 truck, that was my first work truck, I still have it. But that thing, I don't have full coverage on it. Why would I? Why would I spend that extra money? It cost me maybe $10 a month to insure it. But that you have to take into consideration exactly the percentage that is being hedged, how much it's costing Oklahoma. So you have to take a look at each case-by-case basis, but I would lean in favor, yes.
Thank you very much. Senator David, same question to you.
Okay, well, currently the Corporation Commission can't dictate how the utility companies purchase their energy or purchase the power, but when they do come before the Corporation Commission, it's the job of the Corporation Commission to determine whether they've been efficient when they purchase their power. I think I would lean more towards just facilitating meetings between the utility companies and the oil and gas industry, bringing them together at the table, especially before winter comes, on purchasing power and making sure that the utility companies and the oil and gas industry work together to protect Oklahomans. I would rather go down that route first to see if that would be a better solution.
Thank you very much. Storm.
All right, we're going to get in the weeds a little bit more on the 2021 winter storm, so it may be a good time to go to the bar. If you're streaming at home, run to the fridge real quick.
Buckle up.
Here we go. This question will start with Mr. Spradling. What the legislature did do in 2021 was create a pair of securitization programs so that utilities could get conduit financing at lower interest rates to stretch out the debt repayment by ratepayers over decades. Corporation Commission members approved these agreements 2-1, with Commissioner Hyatt and Murphy voting in favor and Commissioner Anthony opposing. It's kind of complicated, but would you have voted to approve these security agreements? Why or why not?
I would have been on the north side. On the no side. Did I say no? I was on the north. I would be on the no side because this was a bill passed through the legislature for this one issue. Are we going to do these kind of things every time? A securitization is meaning we're just going to protect ourselves from what possibly might happen. The theory is good, but it doesn't have to be done like this every time there's a storm. So that's the reason I'd say no.
Mr. Hornback?
Thank you. It really needs to be looked at on a case-by-case basis. In this specific case, I believe I would have been a yes. Securitization is a powerful tool that gave us one of the 4 options I believe I saw that was presented, and of them that did make sense for Oklahoma. Now, of the only 4 options, I believe there was more that could have been looked into. Diversification is the name of the game. There's not a one-size-fits-all answer, and there's not 100% yes or no. And so, like I said before, you have to take a look at each specific incident, each specific case, and understand all the information.
Senator David, 2 minutes, same question.
Thank you. Since I was in the legislature at the time, I actually worked on the committee to help come up with a solution of securitization. I will tell you that we spent a lot of long hours we had the Corporation Commission at the table, we had the Attorney General's office at the table, we spoke with the utility companies. Look, the current law is that those costs, the cost of power is passed directly on to the consumer. And if we hadn't stepped in and done something and let those costs be pushed directly through, now, when times are good, it's great. We can get cheap power and we all benefit from it. But during that storm, because of the huge spike in natural gas, if those costs had been able to be pushed through directly to the consumer, it would have bankrupted families and it would have bankrupted businesses. We had communities that were going to be bankrupted. We would have had towns without power because the power company that was there would have been bankrupted. They couldn't pay the gas bill. We had to come up with a solution. And it wasn't easy for us to come to that decision. But what we did was we looked at how other states dealt with disasters. When you have hurricanes, huge disasters that come in and wipe out entire towns and an entire grid system, and they used securitization. So what that enabled us to do was to allow the utility companies to bond that debt at the lowest rate possible, using the ratepayer as the payer. And that was the best solution. It was the cheapest solution for the ratepayer. And I know no one likes to see that cost on their bill, but no one would have liked to have gotten a natural gas bill for $3,000 and then turned around and gotten an electric bill for another $2,800. And that would have been on the small end. I had people that would have gotten $18,000 gas bills. It was unsustainable. So I felt like it was the right move at that time, and I still believe it was.
Representative Thompson, same question.
Yeah, well, I would have to learn all the factors about it if I was, facing a decision like that myself. From a distance, I would say I would have voted for that because it's a once in a lifetime type of weather event that took place, and the responsibility for or the money that was going to be passed along to the consumer would have just been people would have been unable to pay for that. And so in a one-off, I think that it was a very smart move to give an option so that monthly bills would not go up as excessively as they would have. And so I would have voted for it. Yeah.
All righty, thank you. 3 yeses, 1 no.
Thank you very much. We've got a bonus question at the end of this round. This is where you show off to in a different industry what you know about their industry. We've been talking about getting high-speed internet from border to border, corner to corner of this state for years. What's going right? What can the Corporation Commission do to help improve internet access? Open floor. Who wants to go first? 1 minute. Internet access. Representative Thompson.
Well, I think when I was in the legislature, I was the utility chair, and one of the biggest pieces of legislation that I passed was dealing with the Universal Service Fund, and we modernized and reformed the special section of that fund so that it helps provide broadband to schools, hospitals, and libraries. That fund was at like 30 to 45 million, the demand on that fund, and after we reformed it, it became more efficient, more effective, and now the fund is at 10 to 12 million dollars. So we've saved money and we've provided service, and I think that's important. The other part of that fund is the primary fund, and that is really geared towards rural telephones so that it helps them build out infrastructure so that we can reach the far ends of the state so that they can connect to the metros. And so I think that we just need to make sure that it's modernized as much as possible, and so that it's reflective of all the connections that we have.
Wonderful. Another minute. Who wants to go next? Senator David.
I'll jump in there just because I left an ARPA meeting and came here to this. One of the things we've looked at in the ARPA meetings is trying to get funding out there. What we've seen with even the modernization that we've had in the past with the different funds to be able to help finance high-speed internet, we really had no idea where the holes were. We had holes even here in Oklahoma City, which was shocking to me. And really whenever, when COVID happened and I live in Wagner, Oklahoma, the fact I couldn't get high-speed internet at my house just freaked me out because I'm really close to Tulsa. What we did was we gave ARPA money to get a good mapping product going. We need to be able to see where we need internet. And then we need to be able to help companies with some of that ARPA money that we have available to be able to finance that because it's really expensive to move into some of the areas in the state of Oklahoma. So I believe that that's another really important part in ensuring that we have high-speed internet.
Wonderful. 1 minute to Mr. Hornback.
I think we've done great things. I spoke to many people about the OUSF. That does help the communities, the libraries, schools. There's a lot more that we could be doing. We need to work with industry leaders to bring more infrastructure here, increase what we have available, and build out to these communities that have been left out, to the rural communities that need that access. It's amazing to me that I remember getting online in the 90s, that here we are 30 years later, and there are kids that still have issues being able to connect on the internet. We went through COVID and found out what is possible to connect communities to each other and what becomes of that, and to still have communities that have issues with broadband connection. We definitely need to do more, and bringing everybody together to have that discussion and figure out where we can advance and where we can make things better. That'd be the first stop.
Thank you very much. Lastly, Mr. Spradling, a minute.
I want to go through something real quickly. Our job is to do what we're hired to do. The question before, I said no, and it's the only one. If I was a legislator like Todd or Kim, I would have said yes. But on the other hand, as a Corporation Commission, I would say no. Now, I think that's because it's different. Legislature makes the laws, the others regulate. So you have a right to make a difference, and I appreciate that. But on the internet sites and everything, I've worked about 40 years in Western Oklahoma, and they need a system. And there's one gentleman I know that I've known for years, Frank Lucas, for over 40 years. He came up really high in my respect when he made a strong push to get better service, because there's federal money for expanding our services in Western Oklahoma. I taught in different schools, my home, businesses, worked with the tribes there. They need better service, and I'm whatever it takes.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Quick round of applause. That's the end of round 2. Now we're going to go to round 3. Let's Get Political is the title of this round. We'll ask each candidate a question regarding their record. In this round, each question is only for a specific candidate, unless I change the rules. We're going to start. Storm, you have the Senator David question.
All righty, Senator David, you have vocalized support for expansion projects of the Grand River Dam Authority. That's Oklahoma's public power utility that provides low-cost electricity to municipalities and private businesses, including those at Pryor's Mid-America Industrial Park. But investor-owned electric companies tell us they don't love what they call GRDA's competitive advantage for GRDA. They have no tax liability, and the agency's been criticized for certain property purchases and developments, such as a new Whitewater Park. This session, you voted to exempt GRDA from the state's Open Records Act as it pertains to documents about infrastructure and non-disclosure agreements signed with private businesses. Why was that a good idea to keep that private?
Okay, first of all, besides GRDA being in my district, and I think I explained earlier about how ferociously I can fight for my district and what's good for my district. When I was first elected to office, GRDA was not the authority that it is today. The board was corrupt, the director was corrupt, and I fought long and hard to be able to overturn the director and most of the board. We got rid of them, and we cleaned GRDA up. And I think it was in 2011, I ran a piece of legislation putting together the Legislative Oversight Committee. And I actually said that whoever authored the bill in the Senate and the House had to be the co-chairs of the committee as long as we were in office. And that ensured that that I was always the chairman of that committee as long as I was in office and I was overseeing them. And it was because the regulations that they had on a lot of my people during that time, and it had to do with water then, were very onerous, and it was really taxation without representation. Through the years of us meeting with them and them coming before the committee, the legislative committee, so they're run by a board, but we had the legislative committee where we pulled them in every year or at the call of the chair, anytime we needed them to answer our questions, we could do that. That is still in place. So it's not that they don't have any oversight, they actually have the oversight of the legislature. And as long as the people who come behind me continue to do their job and to bring them to the table to explain what they're doing and why they're spending their money, then that should be effective. So that's why I voted for that.
So why not make them subject to the state's Open Records Act?
Well, because it's not an apples to apples issue. When it comes to contracts, a lot of that is proprietary information. So we wanted to ensure that whatever the proprietary information was that they had, it stayed that way. You know, their board meetings are open meetings unless they go into executive session, just like every other agency is. But there are times where they're making contractual agreements that cannot be subject to open records because of that proprietary information. When we have companies that want to move to Oklahoma, they have to sign non-disclosure agreements, just like other companies do, to be able to get them to come here. They're under non-disclosure agreements, and so we have to make sure that we protect that.
Thank you very much. Representative Thompson, next question is for you. After you termed out of the legislature, you became the managing director of community relations for Epic Charter Schools, while school founders and their private management company were the subject of a criminal investigation. What did you do for Epic? Why did you leave? And do you believe Epic Youth Services, the private company that they founded, broke the law?
Thanks for that question. I'm consistently saying that now. Well, that's a hot topic, isn't it? In fact, I joke with people that whenever I got out of the legislature, I thought, well, I'm going to get out of the controversy, and so I went to work for Epic. That's a sarcasm. But have you ever been to an Epic graduation?
Not personally, no.
If you ever go to an Epic graduation, you will see thousands of kids that, but for Epic, but for that option, they wouldn't have graduated. Epic is not the place for every kid. Epic is a place for certain kids that maybe just didn't fit into their school. The majority of kids are going to go to a regular public school or a private school, but there are some kids that just don't fit in. And so if you go there and you see, that's inspiring. So my job as a community relations guy was to connect teachers and students with legislators, community leaders, so that they could see what they're doing. There's a perception of what happens in that school that it's all online and it's just sitting in front of a computer screen. But the reality is that what happens is that they have a lot of interaction with their teacher, a lot of one-on-one, maybe even more one-on-one than they would in a regular public school. And for that certain kid, that may be exactly what they need. And so for me, it was an honor to do that. Now, because of all the stuff, I didn't dig into the weeds of everything that was going on. But because of that, and due to budgetary issues, then I was riffed.
Gotcha. Do you have concerns that Epic Youth Services may have broken the law?
Well, I have concerns like any Oklahoman, but I haven't seen the evidence of that.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Storm, you have the next question.
Yes, me. Mr. Spradling, you mentioned it earlier. You have ran for and lost Corporation Commission campaigns twice before, I believe. If elected to a 6-year term this year, you'd be serving into your mid-90s. Are you the Jack LaLanne of government regulation? Trace tells me that would be a great compliment. How do you stay sharp and on top of all these complicated issues facing the state?
First of all, there's no mental illness in my family. My mother lived to be 96 and without any mental problems. I have no idea what the future holds. I know that we get healthier. There's one thing that made it good, made people laugh when I campaigned all these places. I'd say, have you noticed, what do you think about this old man walking up and down the street handing out flyers? And they said, man, whatever. I said, well, in 12 years, I'll be 100 years old, and you're going to see me walking the same streets, doing the same sort of thing. And I still believe it can be. So what I'm going for is 12 years, because I think it takes 6 years to settle in. We're going to have a few changes. Todd will be out of the office. Bob will be out of the office in 2 years. Yeah, it takes somebody that knows what they're doing, because they'll be teaching some new ones. I hope to be that one, and I expect to be.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to hear the announcement of your reelection campaign already before this one is concluded. Mr. Hornback, last question to you here. You have not registered a campaign committee with the Ethics Commission because you said you're not raising money for your campaign. But how do you intend to get your message out to the broader public if you're not raising money to campaign in that way?
Well, it just goes to show that broadband is a powerful tool of getting out on social media. I've talked with many people from the area through social media, giving out my card. People know that they have my personal information. I've had people text me. I've had people email me, contact me. There are plenty of free ways to get that information out. And I would rather be limited by not having the funds and not owing people if I am elected than to owe countless people that helped me get my name out there. Is it limiting? Yes. Does it hurt my campaign? Absolutely, 100%. But I appreciate every free chance I get to come out, meet people, talk to people, learn about what's important to them, tell them who I am, why I represent them. Again, earlier, I stated that there's cleanupoklahoma.org. Their big thing is a simple anti-corruption pledge. Now, me and Mr. Harold here both signed this, but the two other candidates haven't signed it. All it is saying that you're not going to take money, and if you do, you're going to be honest about it. There's going to be transparency. You're willing to show where that money came from and how it was spent. I think I think that's what people of Oklahoma want to see. They're tired of all these issues, like Epic, like the Swadleys. There's issues that don't need to reoccur, and I am eliminating any possibility of that, any question. So that's more important than raising money and being able to just promote myself.
Thank you very much. I think maybe the Corporation Commission could regulate barbecue in the state. Because you referenced Senator David and Representative Thompson, the pledge that they had not signed last I checked, I want to ask a question of the two of you specifically. Somebody watching here tonight might see that you both served in the legislature, and you both, back in the day, ran some bills together, I think, across the chambers, or at least, voted in favor of people's bills. You're both Republicans. You're both from the eastern part of the state. You have some similar stances. What is the biggest difference between the two of you? If people are looking at that and they say, these are two former, getting ready to term out lawmakers, what is the biggest difference between the two of you? I'll let either of you start.
Well, I think I'm taller. So
you can kick a football farther.
Yeah, I can kick a football better. Well, I'm not looking at what is different. I'm looking at who I am and what I've learned over the years. What I learned as a legislator, what I learned as a FCA in FCA ministry, what I learned as an athlete, and all of those things has created in me. And these aren't things that I've obtained on that I can say that I'm all of these characteristics. These are the characteristics that I've seen in people from across the state, really the salt of the earth Oklahomans that are the heroes of the faith that I call them. And it's things like team building, building the consensus, listening. It's those kind of things where you're a solution finder, and that's what I bring to it, and that's what I think makes me who I am.
Senator David, 60 seconds to you.
Thank you. I'm going to actually ask for just a little bit of time because I would like to address kind of a statement that was made earlier about on the fundraising side, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Because I think it's really important for people to understand that I can't be bought. Raising money is not saying that you're beholden to somebody because they're supporting your campaign. People supporting your campaign means they support you. And I think it's really important to go out and meet people and ask them to invest in your campaign to help you get into office, because that means that they support you. They'll tell your friends that they support you. They have confidence in you in doing the job. So with that, I would just like to get that out there. And on my experience, I may be a little shorter than Todd, but I'm also a woman. I did not play football, but I was also, as a woman in the Senate, I was the first appropriations chairman during the two worst budget years in the state of Oklahoma. I think I proved during that time that I'm really good at being able to bring people to the table to come up with the best solutions. We made some really hard decisions during those 2 years. I still have a little bit of PTSD even thinking back on how horrible those days were. But what that shows the people of the state is that I will work tirelessly to find the right answer. You can't outwork me. I'll be the first one there and the last one to leave. But I proved that being the appropriations chairman. And then I turned around and I was the first woman to be the majority floor leader for the Senate, the first woman in the statehood. That didn't come because I was a woman. It became, I got that position because of my work ethic.
Thank you very much. Round of applause for the candidates. We get to our final round of questions. We've got closing statements, 2 minutes each. We'll go in the same order. Mr. Hornback, 2 minutes to you.
Again, thank you very much for having me out here, being able to talk about these topics. They are important issues that people need to understand, what the commission does and how we would look at each case. Again, I said at the beginning, I'm not a politician. I didn't grow up. I don't have experience in the legislature, but I do have experience listening to people. I do have experience in the industry. I know how to work hard for the people of Oklahoma, and that's what I want to bring to it. I want to ask that the other candidates do the same. Give out the personal information. Let people reach out to them at any time if they have an issue. Let them email them, call them, text them. I'd also like to challenge you guys to sign an anti-corruption pledge, to be forthcoming with your donations and be willing to share that with the Oklahoma people, because that's what the commission requires. That's in the mission right here from the Oklahoma Corporation Commission, is bringing transparency, and that's what it's all about. So thank you again for having me. I appreciate your time and your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Spradling, closing remarks to you.
I'm a little disappointed. You said you're going to have a showdown, and you give me such fine people to debate. There's no reason to have much of a showdown. This is not national television, so all we can do is say nice things about each other. But I will say this. And all those people I met, thousands of them, and talked to face, I didn't find any bad people. They came out in their attitude, and I went to every kind of business, bars and cannabis shops and all the other businesses, lawyers and accountants. They're all good people. And my opponent that I ran against called and asked me, because we'd had a vigorous campaign 4 years ago, to support him. And I said, I will do it. Then he asked me to be his co-chairman. I traveled the state for 7 months speaking in his behalf and met everybody that's in the Capitol now. And here I was, an 84-year-old man sitting at a desk for 14 years, feeling like nobody knew me, nobody cared, and suddenly I got a voice. So what I'm told the people, thousands of people, you have a voice. Use it. No matter who you are, what you are. And also I said, in the 4 years I have been retired, the best years of my life, I've remodeled 3 houses, I've hauled hundreds of loads of dirt and gravel, spread them across these lawns, built fences. I've substitute taught in 20 different schools in Oklahoma City. I ran for office twice. I mean, I'm a busy person. So I think anybody can, even when they're 96, see me again in 1996. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spradling. Senator David, final 2 minutes to you.
Thank you. And I do believe my personal information has been out there forever. If you don't have my cell phone, then you're the only one in the state that doesn't have my cell phone number. Pretty sure it was tweeted out during the teacher walkout. Look, there are a lot of people that are on the ballot this election cycle, June 28th. There, in my district alone, or in my part of the state, there are 14 people running for Congress. You know, there are a number of people on the Senate, the Senate ballot. So Corporation Commission is way down there. But when the rubber meets the road, I think it's one of the most important elections out there. So I hope that more than anything, you guys tell your friends to make sure they vote, and that they vote right for this, for whoever it is that you're going to support in this position. It's not a very sexy job anybody even knows about. People don't even understand what the Corporation Commission does. But I also feel like like I said earlier, with my education experience, with my work experience, and with the experience I have in the legislature, I can bring all that to the table to work hard for Oklahoma. And I won't mind walking across the street to talk to my members. If there needs to be policy change to make the Corporation Commission more effective, I've got those relationships. And I'm really good at building those coalitions and bringing people to the table. So please vote June 28th, and I would appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Representative Thompson, you'll close us out with 2 minutes.
Trace, Storm, thank you for moderating this. Thank you for everybody being here. I come in here tonight, you want to articulate answers to the question, and as you sit, for me, I sit there and I listen, and I realize that sometimes it's not as clear, and I wish I was as smooth as you guys with cool voices and everything. But the reality is that we live in the greatest country in the world, and we live in the greatest state in the greatest country. And we have the opportunity to be the leaders and set the trends for the rest of the country. And we need to unleash our energy production. We need to provide services for our people. And the Corporation Commission touches all of that. The Corporation Commission touches over 80% of our economic infrastructure, the economic engine that drives us. And so I'm running for the commission position because I want to be part of the solution. I want to be a guy that helps bring people together and is a team builder. I want to be somebody that brings consensus and is first a listener. And I think by doing so, the Corporation Commission can be a teammate that helps make this economic engine really go, makes us a leader in the nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Thompson. Thank you to all the candidates. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to News 9, The Frontier, all of our friends in the media who've shared this debate tonight, who've covered it. Remember, Election Day is Tuesday, June 28th. Over the next 3 weeks, Non-Doc and News 9 and other partners have 4 more debate nights scheduled. June 15th, that's next Wednesday, we're doing Oklahoma County District Attorney primaries at UCO and Edmond. June 16th, that's next Thursday, Attorney General at OCCC in Southwest Oklahoma City. June 20th, we're going to be in Bartlesville for a second congressional district debate. And then lastly, on June 22nd, we've got State Superintendent Republican primary at the Waterford here in Oklahoma City. Public debate matter. Thank you very much. Good night.